This is the Fifth Estate Winning Headlines, your media police post. In this segment, we summarize some of the headlines that you may have missed this morning, but we also take a look at the political pieces that we call cartoons in this country. Today is the 24th of February 2022, and I am 2J.
I am Serbia.
And I am Miss K. Again, in case you missed today's headlines, here they are. Daily Nation, my deputy is unfit to rule. The Standard, Uhuru, why it cannot be Ruto. The Star, Raila is my man, Ruto bad for Kenya, Uhuru. And finally, People Daily, Uhuru, my case against DP Ruto.
Wow.
I know. It's all about Sagana, and in the aftermath of the Sagana Declaration, the Gemma Nation should, in our view, collectively answer two critical questions. These questions speak to what Gemma does now and what their actions mean for their future. Question one. What happens after Gemma leaves the presidency? This question is about who will preserve the political and economic interests of the Gemma Nation. And it is a critical question because the counties that make up Gemma represent a 3 trillion shilling economy. This is equivalent to 30% of the country's GDP. In the run-up to the election, Gemma should be asking itself, what happens to the work we have done? And who will be a worthy trustee of our 3 trillion shilling economy? Gemma should be aware that having been in power for over 30 years, it will not be in power at least for the next decade. And the last time Gemma did not have a seat in the presidency, there was a deliberate destruction of their economy. The second critical question that the Gemma Nation should collectively answer is this. What happens if we do not give enough votes to the winner of the 2022 election? Now, in the 2017 general election, out of the 19.6 million registered voters in the country, 5.6 million or 28% came from the Gemma communities. Depending on how they vote, the Gemma masses can make or break the election. So, what would happen if the Gemma Nation gives insufficient votes to the winner in 2022? How will the Gemma Nation be rewarded or punished for their actions? Because whatever they do, the Gemma Nation must pick a side and vote decisively. Because in 2022, the 2022 election will decide the future of the Gemma Nation. And in the fight for the control of the presidency, the Gemma Nation is to the 2022 election what the Stanley brothers were to the Wars of the Roses for the control of the English throne. Now, in the final battle that decided the fate of England and the English monarchy, the Battle of Bosworth Field, 3 armies showed up to fight. The army of King Richard III, comprising of 10,000 men, the army of Henry Tudor, comprising of 5,000 men, and the army of an English nobleman, Lord Thomas Stanley, comprising of 6,000 men. Lord Stanley was a member of King Richard's court. They had made government together. So, as far as Richard was concerned, Stanley would fight for him. But Stanley was also married to Henry Tudor's mother. Stanley was not related to Henry by blood, but by marriage. You could say he was a Modoniwa. When Stanley and his army arrived at Bosworth, he took up a position independent of both armies. The battle raged around him, but he did not make a choice for either side. When it became clear that Henry would win, Stanley and his army charged to Henry's defense and helped him win the battle. After the war, Stanley was greatly rewarded with lands, title, and privileges for dealing the final blow. So just like Stanley, Uhuru has stood quietly, doing development, while the war for the presidency has raged around him. And now, at the appropriate time, he has pronounced himself. And those tens of thousands of Kikuyus who flocked to the mountain should line up to the last man behind Baba to win this battle.
I like that story. And following the Sagana Declaration, I think it's quite obvious based on what Ms. K has told us, that the people of the mountain have some very serious decisions to make. And in making their decision, the Gemma Nation must ask how they found themselves here. Why does this man, William Ruto, want to convince Kikuyus that they are impoverished hustlers and that he will save them? The point here is that the Sagana Declaration gives Gemma the chance to call William Ruto out. But first, they must understand his game, because it appears that William Ruto is unwell. And so today, we will diagnose him for the country. In our view, Mr. Ruto suffers from a disease called the hero syndrome. And people with this illness are known to create desperate situations which only they can resolve, and thereafter they receive praise. So this term, the hero syndrome, gained popularity in the early 1980s when a Los Angeles police officer, Jimmy Wade Pearson, found a bomb on a bus near the Los Angeles airport during the Summer Olympics. So Pearson was the officer who found this explosive device. He ripped the wires from it and he ran with the device to put it in a safe location away from bystanders. But soon, Officer Pearson's story began to unravel. He was later arrested and charged with multiple crimes after confessing to creating this entire event. He was the one who had planted the fake bomb, all because he wanted to become a hero. He created the problem in order to provide the solution and receive praise. Now back to our diagnosis. This man from Sugoi is so desperate for the affections of the Gemma nation that he has manufactured a problem that only he can solve. He has convinced the youth of Mount Kenya that they are hustlers and that he is the hero who has come to free them. But Uhuru told us, you cannot be the reason for a community's problems and then claim to be their savior, even after their problems are your fault. He said it very clearly. Those who destroyed your livelihoods in tea and coffee are the ones who are telling you that you are hustlers. So dear Gemma Nation, for as long as mankind has existed, so have individuals that create false realities to further their own personal hero status. Ruto's problems are so many that only Kikuyus can solve them. But at what cost? This is the question that Gemma must answer before August 2022.
Sure. I will commence my submission with an insight that was shared by the American playwright William Inge. He said that if the church marries the spirit of its own generation, then it will be a widow in the next generation. What did he mean by this? He meant that the church should not be anchored in things that are worldly, those transient and temporary. The church is meant to secure us those things which are eternal. Ironically, history has taught us that sometimes churches end up being opposed to the very thing they profess to stand for. It is because of this tragic reality that Ruto has been able to make churches abscond the gospel and get converted into campaign halls. And the man from Sugoi learned this from the professor of politics himself, Arap Moi. Moi would hold the Bible in his left hand while he wielded power politics with his iron-fisted right hand. And Arap Moi learned this from the colonialists. The colonialists who came carrying the Bible in their left hand then taught us how to pray with our hands together and with our eyes closed. By the time we opened our eyes, they had the land in their right hand and we were left staring at a Bible which wasn't even in any of our mother tongues. Uhuru Kenyatta warned us about these churches yesterday. The ones that would rather celebrate a donation of 2 million shillings from stolen proceeds than condemn the stealing of 3 billion shillings. Billions which were meant to build a dam so that the children of God can drink water and the people of Elgeyo Marakwet can farm their land. The ones who would rather celebrate someone out to disenfranchise our generation when he plunders what is meant to restore the dignity of the nation. When Uhuru increased electricity connection from 28% to 78%, why wasn't he celebrated then? Then he built the Dhiba Dam that provides water for more than 10,000 residents. Why wasn't he celebrated? Or the Mau Mau Road, the longest road in Kenya, or the Chaka Market, Karimenu Dam. I could go on and on and on.
Yes.
Jesus warned us of false prophets and those who claim to represent him. The ones who have made our churches markets and brothels for transactional relationships. Jesus even went and whipped those that bought and sold in the temple. He drove out the merchants that desecrated the temples. He then cleansed the temple of greed and profit. What's my point here? Religious conmanship needs to be called out. This is because at the end of the day, mental associations are stronger than we realize. The physical podium in a church connotes a real mental and symbolic association with the authority of God's words. Congregants think anything coming from the pulpit has divine approval. So if the clergy needs to declare their political allegiance, let them do so as individuals and not in an official capacity. They shouldn't be telling their followers how to vote, unless they want politicians to tell the country whom to pray for. The worship center isn't called a sanctuary for nothing. It is here that we are protected from worldly affairs. This is a divine place that has required tens of thousands of years to reach its full development, and its sanctity should be preserved. But perhaps for this to happen, it's high time the church faced harsh sanctions and regulations. Ida Odinga was almost crucified for saying this, but perhaps finally, this is what will get rid of the Pastor Mwitus and restore sanity in the church.
Some tough words there. We have a 3-part criteria that we use to judge the headlines for you. We ask ourselves 3 questions. Is the headline topical or speculative, repetitive or groundbreaking, and thoughtful, or just plain lazy? Daily Nation, my deputy is unfit to rule. Standard, Uhuru, why it cannot be Ruto. Star, Raila is my man, Ruto bad for Kenya. Uhuru, and People Daily, Uhuru, my case against DP Ruto.
I love all of them.
Yeah.
I think they're all fantastic headlines. However, the Star, so wordy, so
I know.
long.
She just have stopped at Raila is my man.
Yeah, it's as if they wanted
so
to
bad.
mention everybody's name in the small space that they have.
I know. So if we have a hierarchy, we give a winning headline to all, but the Star comes in at the bottom.
It comes in last.
Yes, it's the worst of the best. And there you have it. Onto the political pieces that we call cartoons in this country. Just like the headlines, we have a 3-part criteria that we use to judge the cartoons for you. Are they humorous or dry, satirical or pessimistic, effective or just plain lazy? Let's begin with the Daily Nation.
Okay, I'm going to explain that. The caricature of President Uhuru Kenyatta throwing a sack of beans on William Ruto. The sack of beans is labeled Sagana 3. So there's something I really need to ask. Did he really spill the beans, or he told us what we already know? Maybe he included something like what we didn't know before, that if Deputy President changes his ways, perhaps in the future he can...
I actually want to disagree with the cartoon. I think this is part of the point that was made in yesterday's episode.
Yes.
That people flocked to the mountain to hear Uhuru speak, and they thought that he was going to spill the beans and give them, lots of juicy gossip. Well, instead, the president, chose country over self. So I think that the depiction of this cartoon of him spilling the beans that ended up, toppling the deputy president, I don't think that's a very accurate
description.
depiction.
I do agree with you, and I'd say we put it in the parking bay. Let's take a look at the Standard. Some geopolitics there.
Some geopolitics. Let's take it back. In the Standard from Gado, we have a cartoon that depicts Vladimir Putin, president of Russia, on top of a white Russian bear waiting outside a house called Ukraine. And inside you have the president, I presume, who looks very scared. And the polar bear is knocking on the door. I think we've all realized now we may be, at the foot of World War III. We'll see what happens. But I think we all know that Russia declared war on Ukraine and did, in fact, invade.
Yes.
I think it's a bit too early for us to discuss what this means. But I believe Professor Mutahi tweeted earlier today just asking a very interesting question, that question of a single story. And I think this is a question we often pose on this table. And I want to ask, is Putin without a point?
I think you had a point, Serbia, about what Putin said when he made his remarks in Russian today.
He claims that Ukraine was originally part of Russia, and Khrushchev and Lenin gave out all these territories to Ukraine as generous gifts. That is what he calls them. So he needs to right the historical wrongs.
Yeah.
So I
think we need to be very careful as Kenyans when we try to make our position known. I think we need to be Africans, hold our own position, and wait while the West,
figures out themselves.
Right.
So put that in the parking bay as well. And
actually,
take a look.
I would suggest we just toss it.
Okay, we can toss it. We can toss it.
Yes.
The Russian bear needs to be tossed. And finally, take a look at the Star. Again, another cartoon of President Uhuru Kenyatta. His caricature of him standing at the mic, holding it very decisively. And again, there are beans falling from the sky on DP Ruto. And I agree with you too, Jay. They are missing the point.
Missing the point
completely. Yes, the president held the mic yesterday and he was very decisive in how he held it. But what he told us was how he chose peace over himself.
Exactly.
And that is the message that should have been in the cartoons today rather than the tea that he did not spill. But between the Star and the Daily Nation, I picked the Star as our winning cartoon. What do you guys think?
I picked the Star as well. I think this is, we've been told, and this is a 2M specific statement, that when you see the president holding the microphone in this
The
manner,
signature.
you know that he's about to
Tell you something tough.
Exactly, he's going to chopper some people.
He
So
is.
I think for that note, yeah, I'd give it to the Star as well.
And there you have it. The Star gives us our winning cartoon. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're also on your TV screens. You can find us on Pang Free to Air, GoTV, and Star Times. Again, as a reminder, we did a shared winning headline, but the Star was the best of the worst, the worst of the best.
Yeah, so 4 winning headlines.
4 winning headlines. I will leave you with a quote on war. And I think it's Albert Einstein who said this quote about World War III and IV. And he said, I don't know with what weapons World War III will be fought, but World War IV will be fought with sticks and stones. I think that's for us to calm down a little bit. Do have a great evening.